Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Peter Kuntz, and I am the fearless leader of this course. This is the 6th year of the course. Is that right?
I think
seventh?
It's more than that.
7th year.
7th or 8th.
This will be the 7th time so we developed this course 6 years ago. The first time it was 2011. So yeah, this will be the 7th edition. I developed this course, I think as it says on the website, it's I guest lectured. So Peter Firth from Northeastern University started the program, and he takes students from Northeastern University as a study abroad program. I knew Peter from the Transportation Research Board meeting, and we essentially talked a little about his program, and I said, well, gosh, that sounds like the course I should have taken when I was an undergraduate. And then shortly thereafter, he asked me to guest lecture. So I went to Delft, and sure enough, after the guest lecture, I was hooked and ready to bring students back to the Netherlands the next year. So we set up the year after. That was, I guess, 2011 now. So this is it's been going ever since. And we'll talk about that the program as a part of this. But before we do that, let's do just a quick round of introductions. So I'll give you my full resume. I work for the city of Portland. That's my day job. But then I teach adjunct at Portland State. In the summer, I teach a traffic engineering transportation applications class. Hal, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Hal Hagedorn. I'm the Associate Director for the Transportation Research and Education Center. I also direct the Initiative for Bicycle and Pedestrian Innovation, which is the program under which the study abroad program is. So I accompanied Peter a couple of years ago to Delft, so I'm familiar with the course.
So hi everyone, I'm Renata. I also work at TREC and IDPI, similar to Hal. So I help administer the logistics of the program, and I work with the Education Abroad Office, which is the PSU Study Abroad Office. So some of the things like the application and things like that will be through the Study Abroad Office, but I'm sort of like a liaison between them and TREC and Peter.
Okay.
My name is Tal. I'm environmental engineering student here.
Yes. What year?
Senior.
Okay, great.
My name is Isaac. I'm a student at PSU, engineering student, in 3rd year.
Okay. Civil?
No, I'm mechanical.
Mechanical.
Oh,
All right.
great.
Did it in transportation.
Right.
Cool.
Okay.
My name is Mac Ray. I'm a first-year graduate student in the Urban and Regional Planning program.
All right.
Steve, urban regional planning master's student.
Great.
I'm Karen, and I'm also a first year urban regional graduate student.
Okay.
How's it going? Michael Harpool, first year MUS student.
MUS.
Masters of Urban.
Urban. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Brian. I'm actually in a unique situation. I'm a non-degree student taking MERP classes. I applied for the MERP program for fall 2017.
Great.
David, I am a graduate student in the MSc program, so the Masters of Science Civil Engineering, and I just started in fall 2018.
I'm Srisha Kuturi. I'm a postdoctoral research associate in civil engineering. Work on a lot of bike and pet projects. Eager to check it out.
Nate White, first year Master Urban Regional Planning.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm Jenna. I'm a 3rd year civil engineering student.
Okay.
I'm Dylan Johnstone. I'm a 2nd year Master Urban Regional Planning student. I'm here because I've been on this program before, actually twice now. I met Peter the first time around with my undergrad in 2011, which was Northeastern, that does the sort of dual program with this. And then again last year, but now it's Peter.
Yeah.
Coming to answer questions from that student perspective.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. All right, around the virtual room, David.
My name is David Hurwitz. I'm an associate professor at Oregon State University in transportation engineering. At OSU, I direct the Driving and Bicycling Simulator Laboratory, and I'm incredibly excited to report that the lab is actually in one piece and operational as of last week. So we're real excited about that. And I also serve as the Associate Director at OSU for our regional UTC, PacTrans, housed up at the University of Washington. And during the course of this particular summer teaching experience, we've had one student from LSU participate, and we're hoping to drive those numbers up moving forward.
Great, thanks, David. Akshali?
Hi, I'm Akshali Gandhi. I'm a transportation planner based out of Washington, D.C.
Right.
Not
and
a
then
student.
Rhonda, I don't know if you can hear us or pipe in, but Rhonda Young is with us from Gonzaga University, and she is interested in the program and as well as some students there. So I'll just say that, and if we hear from you, Rhonda, that's great. If not, that's okay too. All right. So yeah, so I have a quick, short presentation. I really want to take the opportunity to kind of just run through some of the information that that I think might be useful for you all. Rana, so they can see this. So, okay, great. So the Sustainable Transportation in the Netherlands, it's a short course that's 2 weeks in duration. We'll get into the dates and some of the details there. But as I said, as a practitioner, I was a consultant before I was a city engineer, and that time in consultant practice, it was really where we were doing a lot of work in transit. We weren't doing so much in bike design, but certainly as an avid cyclist myself, I saw the things that were happening over the Netherlands and things that we were starting to do in Portland back in 2009, 2010, and said, gosh, there's got to be a better way than just striping a 6-inch white stripe for a bike lane. How are they doing it? Why are 25% of the population in the Netherlands biking every day? And so Peter had this program. Peter Firth had this program. As I mentioned, I guest lectured and then started the PSU edition of it. So what we do at Portland State is Northeastern University goes for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, I guess.
Yeah, it's 4 weeks when I was doing it now. It's 5 weeks.
Okay. And we go, so Portland State has a limited duration. It's 2 weeks, so I'd like to say it's the best 2 weeks of the time. It's the orientation and then the field trip. So it's a 10 course days with, of course, the weekends in there. The 10 days are, your average day will be a field trip to a city nearby Delft. So we're home in Delft, that's our home base. We have stayed in everything from hostels to dorm rooms. That's been I think the experience so far. We're exploring actually hotel rooms this year because of the uncertainty of some of the dorm rooms. The dorm rooms are, I'd say, not your average dorm room. They've been, I think,
there's been a range, so
good experiences,
yeah,
some not so great experiences. So that's the housing is something that is part of the program package. So that's part of the university stay there, and then also the university facilities. So when you get there, all of our an average day is a field trip, but often we'll have an orientation at the university. We may have a short lecture, but then most of the time we'll be in the field, looking at things, capturing information, taking pictures, and then bringing that information back and then having some conversations about how that might be applied in the U.S. And that's really where, at the culmination of this 2-week program, essentially there are 2 elements of the coursework. One is applying the idea, a concept that you've seen there in a group project in Portland or in a city of your choice, really trying to gather the data. So that's my job as a faculty advisor, is to bring data and to present you with different problems that you would try to solve. We had, I can go through examples of that later, but that's essentially, we want you to apply what you've seen. So it's not just a field trip to look at things, it's trying to capture data so you could say, well, how might we make biking better on, 2 years ago we looked at NATO Parkway and said, how might we put a protected bike lane on NATO Parkway? What would that do? What are the things that we'd have to look at? How have the Dutch approached that sort of a design? We don't just think about biking, we think about all of transportation, so I'll talk about that and some of the different field trips that we do. Any questions before I jump into the presentation though? Any things that you might add? How?
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Akshali asked on the web, does the course then extend the whole summer semester? So the 2 weeks is essentially the bulk of the work. There have been people that have said, well, I can't get the group assignment done. I want extra time to work on it. But most of the time is spent there. So there is an element of that extend beyond that. But most of the stuff is done. We try to get it done when we're in the Netherlands. But yes, you can extend it. Yeah, please.
A lot of people like to travel after or sometimes before, so you almost want to get your work done during those 2 weeks so that you can then spend the next however long, 2 weeks to a month, traveling around Europe and taking advantage of that if you have that opportunity to do so.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so yeah, where is it? So it's at TU Delft, so a university that Peter had an association with. They actually are a pretty good-sized engineering program. We're housed in the engineering building. So that's just I think it's a convenient location. Delft is pretty central, so I'll show you a picture of where that is. And then again, Peter Firth is kind of the originator for this. So we do tag along with Peter. He sets up most of the things with some help from us, but it's kind of following along with what they do. And there's Peter. Peter Firth, if you haven't heard of the name, he is passionate about transportation and very focused on, of course, cycling, transit, and of course traffic signals, as I am. And so that's where we have, I think, a good relationship, because we can geek out with the best of people and talk about the details, but then also step back and go, look, there's some big picture things that we've been able to do, that they've been able to do that we can incorporate some of those elements, both in Portland and maybe less so in Boston, I guess I'd say. It's always a fun debate to talk about how far Boston has come in the last 5 years. But that's something that certainly, if you think about from where you are from, you can start to apply the same principles and understand why so many people ride their bikes and take transit and walk. It's a different sort of design, and that's where they're ahead of where we are, of course, in the U.S. So Amsterdam is there on the left there, so right in the bay. Delft is kind of mid. It's further south, but it's a short train ride away from Amsterdam, so about 45 minutes by train. Pretty centrally located, so it's on some major rail lines, so it really doesn't take too long to get anywhere. Our furthest trip, as I talk about the various cities that we go to, I have a list. I don't want to jump ahead, but here's a good example. So we're in the center of Delft. That's the main square. And so Peter is starting us off for the day. We're going to do a field trip, actually, and we meet with a regional planner. So the gentleman on the right who's talking to the group, he presented for about 3 hours, took us on a bike tour of the area, but he talked about the regional plan. So the regional plan is how they have gotten to where they go. So he does projections, transportation projections, and also talks about how the town centers is developed. And so he's been at it for 25 years, and it's really great to get the whole story of, well, this is how the Dutch government views planning, and then goes into the engineering details of why the streets are the way they are in the central cities, why the tram lines have been designed as they have. So that's sort of a kind of an average day. That's of course the regional. We get the regional aspect of it depending on where we are. Sorry, I'm just going to move that chat box out of the way. So the objectives. So of course you have to have objectives for any course. We want to learn the best practices for design of intersections. That's really my specialty. I like to focus on intersections. Design for intersections for transit, pedestrian, and bicycle travel. So really multimodal, sustainable transportation. We have multiple field trips. Highlight those design treatments, and then how we could apply them in the U.S. That's objectives at the micro scale. Of course, there's the bigger picture policy that you have to start with to get there. Why would we design for that? So I think we try to strike that blend of planning and engineering design. You want to add anything to that?
I would say that so that first objective intersections, you know, from the practitioner standpoint is the trickiest part of design. And so to focus on that, I think, is pretty essential knowledge. So I think that's a key point of this course.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Peter Firth has incredible knowledge around facilities in terms of just dimensions and can rattle that off. And that's a lot of, you know, if you want to get all the way into the nitty-gritty detail of it, you can. I think from a planning standpoint, it's really interesting to see the different treatments throughout different types of zones and land uses that they have, and just see what they think is a good idea for the different areas. And Delta is unique in the way that it's got a really old central city core, and then it's got sort of newer suburbs that run out of that. So it's just it's an interesting case study within Europe and within the Netherlands, at least, to be like based out of as well.
Yeah. Great. So here's just an example of field trips, and I think it's over time. So it just depends. A lot of it depends on we have contacts in these different cities. So if we, Harlem is a good example there. They do some bus rapid transit elements. So Peter Firth has a contact in Harlem. And so if that person is available, that's the challenge, I think, with some of these field trips, is getting that person during the summer, right? If you've ever heard of European summer, they take vacations, and they do a very good job of taking their vacation. So sometimes you can't find the opportunity to have that person present to you. So you lose some of the value if you can't have that. So we're somewhat flexible. So that's what we do, is we beg and borrow and steal people's time where we can, and go visit them, have them give you the perspective of what their approach has been on any of these topics. So for example, and some of the trips are harder to pull off than others. Like Utrecht is a good train ride away, about an hour and 45 minutes. So it's a full day. You got to make sure that you get those people there. Whereas The Hague is a short ride away, and we can go talk to the folks in transit operations pretty easily. So that's kind of the gist of a day, is that you will maybe bike to where you go. So if you aren't comfortable on a bike, the message for you is you should get comfortable on a bike, because that's most of the days is we're biking anywhere from 10 to 20 miles. And there is one day where it's a longer day. We actually bike to the coast, which sounds kind of arduous, but the nice thing about the Netherlands is it's extremely flat. So we take it easy. If you're worried about that, my 8-year-old did it. So she was we're not hardcore cycling tourists, but we take things very slow, and the Dutch tend to bike fairly slow. So it's not extraneous. But there is physical exercise involved. You want to comment on that?
If you're in Portland, the Bike Town bikes would be the best way to train for that. They are about as heavy, or any other sort of bike shared bike if you're in a different city.
Most of the bikes are single seat, coaster brake style. So, but that's all that's really needed, because there are some small hills to get over bridges, but they are very, very small. About that? Remember one year a colleague or a student said, do I need to bring spandex and my clipless pedals? And the answer is no. Everybody bikes there. You can see that in the pictures.
I think the only thing that will hurt is your backside.
Yeah.
The seats are not always the most comfortable.
So. The other question often is helmets. And as a responsible parent with my 8-year-old and 5-year-old, when we went the first time, they both had their helmets. We took their helmets. The second time we went, when they were 11 and 8, we didn't take helmets. Helmets, no, but not very, very few. I'd say less than 2% probably people wear helmets. It's an odd sight to see people wear helmets, because it's mostly on trails. It's mostly low speed. I've never really felt unsafe when I'm there. You do have to worry about the streetcar tracks, kind of like you do here. But cycling it's a lot different there, and there's, again, the reason for that is the policies and the design that you'll learn about. So schedule, and do stop me, interrupt me, add to the chat box if you're online, if you have any questions. So the schedule as it stands is July 2nd to the 15th, so that's that 2-week window. So we start on that Monday, July 2nd. We are there for July 4th, so Peter Firth will often have us sing either the Star Spangled Banner or something, and we'll have a barbecue on the 4th just for fun as a part of the course. That's been pretty typical. Yeah, it's again 2 weeks, that Monday to Friday, and then you're free on those weekends. As a part of that, you can certainly figure out whether you want to extend that. So there's some flexibility there if you need to leave a day or two earlier, based on travel, how that works out. Getting there early, I think the key thing is just the housing. We would obviously take care of your housing for that period, but then you're kind of on your own after that. And then applications due. We have traditionally made March 15th the deadline. It may be March 1st this year. We're still working out the details. The earlier you get in, the better. And we have had a lot of interest, so I would say get in as early as possible. In the years past, we have done a early kind of review of the applications, just so that we could allow and say, yes, you can go, and then start looking for tickets. That's the biggest thing, the variability of tickets. Right now, they're running at about 1,100, 1,150, which is pretty reasonable. We've seen them down at 800 sometimes, so it's as high as 1,600. So it's, it's a little bit like anything. It's a little bit like rolling the dice. So that's something that's on your own. That's not part of the program cost. So it's part of the adventure is finding out a way to get there.
So a note about the application process. So they're working on opening the application. So right now, if you go to the Education Abroad program webpage, you won't be able to start an application yet, but that should be open at the end of the week or early next week. If you have a question about applications, or if the website is a little confusing for you, I wrote down the contact information for who you should email regarding any kind of application related questions, or if you have financial aid questions, you can email her as well.
Great. Thanks, Renata. And
I'll share that email with people on the web too, maybe via the chat box after this.
Okay, so the things you should know, so we have a passion for traffic signals. So as a part of the tours, you may have to stop and look at traffic signals. We tend to do that. And then, of course, thinking about that, how does that relate to the policy? So that's a key part of the puzzle is how is that different from U.S. practice, and what things we might have to change in the U.S. Peter and I are both interested in how we make transportation more sustainable, and that's part of that is understanding the barriers that we have in the U.S. So sometimes you'll ask questions of people that you'll meet in the Netherlands, and they'll just kind of, they won't answer with a practical, U.S. sort of perspective, and that's sometimes because they just either don't have words for it, or they don't have the same sort of barriers that we have in terms of the way we think about transportation.
So Peter, there is one question in the chat box.
Oh yeah.
Our letters of recommendation.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, letters of recommendation. I don't think are they required?
Well, do you remember reviewing them? Because it's still pretty much the same process.
I think it's recommended, but it's not required.
Yeah.
It's a good question. It's always fun to navigate. So yeah, so we'll definitely we'll talk about Portland policies as a part of this. Part of that is sharing that with the students from Northeastern, because they don't necessarily know about what we've done in Portland, the land use stuff, and we try to break up the course so that it's, we introduce certain things, but it's we don't dwell on things that you may already know. The Northeastern University course is mostly undergraduates, and so there is a difference in terms of the technical knowledge, but a lot of the stuff is good for both programs. As just an example of, again, some of the field trips, so this is a transit station there, and I think this is Pioneer, if I'm not mistaken. So this is one of the field trips. We go out and we look at the nature of a newer area and how it was developed, and how they brought the transit and designed the transit and the bikeway facilities right to the center of a brand new station area. We think about things like traffic signals and how those are part of the puzzle. I mean, that's again my focus of the city, so I definitely point these things out and have different ideas about policies and things that we've been doing in Portland to try to make our traffic signals more effective. Again, examples of field trips and things like in this case we're talking about the range of how they developed this new development and without all the parking spaces that we typically build for cars. It's something that as someone that's worked for private developers, as a practitioner, it's just it's a refreshing perspective on how they approach development. So if you're an engineer that's interested in sustainable development, this is also I think a piece of the puzzle that they've figured out in the Netherlands that I'd say some of our policies don't always help us in this regard in the United States. Things like bike boxes, things that we're discussing that are commonplace in the Netherlands are considered innovative in the U.S. or even concerning for more conservative engineers. One of my favorite stories is after we got back from the 2011 course was one of the participants, an engineer who still working as a student, was an intern. When we got back, we were talking about a cycle track design, and she was more knowledgeable than any other engineer in the room. So she had the experience from the course to talk about the various design elements and how she was approaching the project as opposed to the engineers that maybe had never seen things of this nature. Things like treatments for prioritizing buses and one-way treatments. This is a bus sluice. Things that I think we would never do in the U.S., but things that we talk about to just make sure that you're thinking about the policies, the lengths that they'll go to try to make sure that their communities are protected from maybe unwanted traffic. So some frequently asked questions, I'm going to wrap up here soon, is do I have to be an engineer to participate? So the answer is no, absolutely not. Anyone with an interest in transportation would enjoy the course. So I will say transportation and development interests. Northeastern University has some a pretty broad participation from anywhere from artists to environmental science majors. So it's I think a course that you can learn. You can take something from in any case, in any career path that you're on. And we talk a little bit about water in the Netherlands because water is everywhere. It's a key part of what they do because they are managing the water because a lot of the country is below sea level. What did the coursework include? As I mentioned, some of the examples of case studies. So we bring data with us. And then do you have to speak Dutch? And the answer is no. I don't speak any Dutch at all. And it's always worked out just fine. They're very accommodating for engineers that are not really savvy with the Dutch language. So just a few parting photos. Things like bike lanes, things that we have been designing. This is a practice, I'd say a past practice of the Netherlands. They don't do this much anymore, so it's fun to kind of talk about with the engineers of why they don't do this, why they don't have treatments like we do. And of course, Peter Firth and I can debate the color and the striping and whether what our practices are in the U.S. And then thinking about intersections and protected intersections. That's also been a key point of interest in the U.S. And just it's commonplace in the Netherlands. So it's great to see that sort of the practice that's ubiquitous or that's considered brand new here is ubiquitous there. And then things like pedestrian zones as well, and thinking about the safety of all users of the street. So with that, on trains, of course, can't leave trains. If you're a train buff, you'll love the travel around the country because their trains are certainly second to none. So with that, come join us in Delft. The collaboration for the Northeastern students is great. Of course, exposure to the European culture and community. It's considered an inexpensive way to earn credit and travel this summer. It had been limited to 8 students. I think we extended it to 12 last
right.
last year.
12, yeah.
So that's something that I think 8 to 12 students is what we usually take. Northeastern takes 20, so it can be a big group, but then we get into our smaller groups as well. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll open it up to any questions, and let's pull back